I'm Curtis Wallace with Coldwell Banker Executives Realty. So, taking an opportunity with Kelli here to ask some questions to a mortgage broker. So, Kelli, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kelly, and I work with DLC White House Mortgages, and the office is based out of Vernon. So I'm happy to service my Okanagan clients. I'm also back and forth to Coquitlam, so expanded out into the Lower Mainland here to help clients out here as well. So I do have some experience under my belt dealing with all types of mortgages, as I used to be assistant to Deb White there at White House Mortgages. So. Yeah, lots of experience with all types of mortgages.
Yeah, and I'm based in Vernon and serving the North Okanagan. But let's get into some questions here. So, what's one thing buyers seem to always misunderstand, or something that comes up a lot that you'd like to clarify for buyers in general?
Yeah, I love working with buyers, and when they come to me, I do think that, you know, starting the shopping without talking to a mortgage broker or a lender about what you can really afford is kind of just it makes things a little bit more difficult. Absolutely. It's really good for, I would say, a misconception would be just to not get a clear picture of where you stand financially. And my job would be to help you get pre-approved. I love sitting down, having that discovery call with my client, taking their application and getting to know them and their goals and, you know, being having it so they can work with a realtor and feel confident in so when they're actually shopping, they know that they're in a good position to put a solid offer in.
Yeah, and that's of course helps me very much as well if buyers have gone and talked to a mortgage broker and got a good idea of what they can actually afford before house shopping. So yeah. What's the fastest win a buyer can get to improve their approval chances?
Oh, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
would say to, be mindful of your credit. One thing that is a good tip is to download Credit Karma and to look at your own credit score and see if there's something on there that maybe it's not even it wasn't yours. And you can always and contact me as your mortgage broker, and I can help to get rid of that if there's something that's off on your credit. So
Mm.
one thing lenders like to see is having two credit trades, which means like a credit card or a cell phone is a good one, managed well for like at least 6 months. So it's not even really that much.
Mhm.
Something that, is a good kind of way to measure for a positive credit is keeping your credit card balances at about 30% or less if possible. That is like a good sweet spot to show that you're managing your credit well. Lenders like to see that.
Okay, that's great to know. And I guess you can probably help look at a file and identify some red flags that clients could deal with right away. And
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And just utilize, there's a government program that was just introduced of the first home savings account. It's a really great way, instead
Hmm.
of keeping your down payment in just like a regular savings account, by putting it into the first home savings account, you get tax benefits. And yeah, it's just a smarter way to grow your down
Mhm.
payment. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess as a first-time home buyer, there's a few programs to be aware of. I think the first-time home savers account, that's a federal thing. And also good to be aware that even though you bought a home previously, you may still qualify for that as a first-time home buyer on the federal level. But of course, it can get confusing because like on the provincial level, there's the property transfer tax here in BC, which is a big cost for buyers. Was 1% on the first 200,000, 2% over 200,000, but first-time home buyer can be exempt from that. However, if you're, not someone who's purchased before, taken that 4 years and qualifies on a federal level for the first-time home savers account, but only a true first-time home buyer, so it gets a little bit confusing. But
Yeah.
Yeah. What are other programs, or how would you help clarify those programs?
I think, yeah, the BC property transfer tax exemption is a huge, huge savings for first-time home buyers. So when you purchase up to $500,000, you get a full exemption, but you have to be a true first-time home buyer, meaning you've never owned a home for your own personal residence anywhere in the world before. And there's no reset to that one. That one is just a one time, one and done, because it is such a big savings. So if you are purchasing as a first time home buyer up to 835,000, you get a partial exemption, not a full exemption. So that is something that, talk to your realtor, talk to your mortgage broker, and then your real estate lawyer will give you the final like amount. They will be the one to fully confirm your property transfer tax exemption. Absolutely. Yeah, an RSP as another first-time home buyer. Um, its benefit. They've increased the first time home benefit to 60,000. So you can withdraw up to 60,000 of your own RSPs now without any tax implications.
Oh.
However, some
Mhm.
people don't know that you have to pay that one back. So
Mm.
over 15 years, you have to recontribute to your RSPs and repay it back over the 15 years. So whatever you withdraw, if you're looking to avoid any tax implication, you have to
Mhm.
put it back in 15 years. Where the first home savings account, you don't have to put back. So that's a good difference that people don't quite know. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like even if you're going to purchase a home this year as a first-time home savers, if possible, contribute to that account just to get the tax savings prior to your purchase.
Yeah, and it can be in there for any amount of time. So if you have some money put aside and you're about to purchase a house, move it over. Open a first home savings account, move it over, use it for your down payment. Boom, next year you
Mhm.
get a
Nice.
benefit. Yeah, it's a really good program that the government's added. Another one that they've recently added is allowing people who are purchasing with less than 20% down. They used to have a 25-year amortization. Now they can buy with less than 20% down and have a 30-year amortization. And that can make a big difference in qualifying. So it either lets you have a little bit of lower mortgage payment. It's about on a $400,000 mortgage, it's about $200 less per month. And you can just have that lower payment, or you can technically then qualify for more if you were just looking to, increase your purchase price. Yeah.
And that's a great option. That's something that's just more recent that's come out.
I
That's
believe it was 2024, but don't quote me on that. So,
okay. Good. It's
yeah.
good to know there's options there. Yeah, I mean, moving on. What's something you wish that realtors would know a little more about the mortgage broker business so we could better work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one I like to stress it is important, even if you're pre-approved, the realtors know to still have a subject to financing in the offer. It is just if you go in subject free, even if you have a prime client, um, they can be fully pre-approved. The bank loves them. Everything's great about their application. However, they could pick a property that the lender won't lend on, or the insurer won't insure, or you can't get home insurance on. So there's all these factors that it's like you can have everything right, but you don't want to put your client in a situation of subject free. In that scenario because you can pre-approve the client, but you can't pre-approve the house. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those
Have you
things.
seen any big horror stories from that?
Uh, you know, this is what I have. This is another mortgage broker in our office has said this. There's a mortgage for every situation. There's a mortgage for everyone. So maybe everything's right. A horror situation might be okay. they have a subject free, but we can't get financing. Or maybe they remove subjects without having their financing fully done. They just didn't talk to their mortgage broker and they removed financing and they didn't actually have financing. Stuff like that can happen. We do have private lenders that we have access to that could just get it done as a short-term band-aid. And it might be a higher, well, it will be a higher interest rate, hopefully like an open term to maybe deal with whatever the problem was and then take it back to an A lender once the problem is solved. So, you know, something that we've seen in the past, poly B piping, not every lender has a concern about that, but it is something that can kind of throw a wrench in it. And then we have to switch lenders at a last minute because they found out that there was like a poly B or something.
Hmm.
There's different things that come up, or the home inspection has found something that the lender didn't like, and now we have to move to a different, it has to get addressed before it can take it back to an A lender. So yes, I have seen situations.
And how many different lenders do you have access to? Is it like hundreds or
Well, some mortgage brokers will say that, but it's more around like 40. Like obviously once you get in 40,
there's
50
some
or so,
options?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of options and there's
Mhm.
different buckets of lenders. So there's like the prime A lenders, there's credit unions, which will give you A rates, but they can do certain unique scenarios, which other lenders don't do. There's kind of monoline lenders that you can't walk into the bank. They don't have like an actual branch. They're, just mainly online, but they've been also around for 30 years and they're super trustworthy and we work with them on a regular basis. There's B lenders.
Mhm.
So if you have a little bit of a credit, maybe hiccup, and you're not quite there for an A lender, there's just a little bit higher rates, but you can still get the deal done. So a lot of self-employed borrowers, if they like to, pay as little tax as possible and not claim their income, we can still get them a mortgage with like a different lending program. So yeah, we have access to all sorts of types of lenders.
Awesome. And then what's some new product types that you're seeing out there that have been helpful to people?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that yeah, I've done a couple times that's come across my desk that's really helped clients get into a better scenario for them. So it's called the Purchase Plus Improvement Program. And it is offered by certain lenders and insurers that what it does is it allows you to tack on the cost of a renovation onto the mortgage.
Hmm.
So it works really well for people who want to add a suite into their home and they're looking in the market and they're looking around, they're not finding a house with an actual suite already, but they're seeing potential. They're like, "Oh, I could convert this basement into a suite, no problem." But I don't want to use all my down payment money for that, or I only have certain amount. Like, what can I do? So the purchase plus improvement allows to put the cost of the renovation onto the mortgage, and then you do the renovation to get the suite all in place, and the lender will allow you to use that rental suite income to help you qualify.
So
So
that's really cool. Even though there's not a suite there already, with the knowledge now, do you have to supply estimates for that work? And how do you just do a rough estimate what the suite could be valued, or do we need to get an appraiser in there typically to do a rental evaluation, or how does that work?
yeah, so what the lenders you look for is they all do a program a little bit differently, but typically how it works is you need a contractor to come in, get a quote for all the cost of the renovation to add the suite, and you can't include appliances. That's one thing, but yeah, you provide the quote, the lender approves it and then they add that amount to the mortgage and then yeah to give an assessment of what the future suite income would look like, we get an appraiser to do what's called a market rent appraisal. So
Mhm.
they assess other suites in the area to give an idea of what you could get for that rental suite. Yeah, and we could use that to help
Makes
qualify.
sense. Yeah, it gives people all sorts of options out there, and I know definitely working with more buyers now that want to look at does it have a suite or does it have suite potential? Yeah, and I know personally several people I'm working with that seems to be an option that makes things more provides more options for them as when they're looking for properties for sure. So,
Yeah, it really it
mhm.
just opens up the door to just getting them maybe into that detached home sooner versus
Mm.
having to start off in a townhome and then work their way up. They can, get to their end goal a little bit sooner. And, with affordability, having that rental income is, it's so helpful for people buying homes. Like it's a really great option. Yeah, and I just wanted to say like we had recently worked together and I wanted to give you
Mhm.
some praise and just that process of getting that accepted offer in and then, with the subject removal, it's my job during that period of time to get the mortgage in place. And I always have to like, lean on realtors during that time. You were great in communication. You were great in sending documents. You were great in like managing, the client's needs. And I was just, yeah, really happy how that process whole worked working with you in this.
Yeah, yeah, communication is key, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So I just
it's
want to give
good.
kudos for that.
Well,
Yeah, a
thanks,
couple
Kelly. Yeah.
questions. Oh yeah, you're welcome. A couple questions that I
Mhm.
had, is just what the market is looking like in the Okanagan right now. What kind of
Mhm.
market is it?
Oh, well, it's a balanced market, I guess, to put it really simply. I often hear people commenting, oh, it's a buyer's market now, or even people have had comments, oh, are we still in this multiple offer situation? So there's, a lot of misinformation out there. But, I think across BC and across Canada, you hear a lot, oh, we're in this, big correction, or it's a buyer's market, which, the two biggest markets in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, are certainly in kind of a correction period. And Vancouver certainly is. You see absorption rates there even under 10%, which that means, and say there's 1,000 homes on the market in the month, if it's under 10%, less than 100 of them selling in a month, whereas in the North Okanagan, we see absorption rates, it's really been around 16% for the last several years, which is considered kind of right in the middle of a balanced market. When we get under 12%, that's considered a buyer's market. Above 20% is considered a seller's market. Um, so looking at the North Okanagan and, across Canada, of course, we saw the prices run up there 2021, 2022, and then a sharp correction. But then really in the North Okanagan, I'd love to throw up the charts and stuff, but we've really been in a balanced market with not a lot of price movement over the last 3 years. Looking ahead, so there's this foreign home buyer ban that's federally in place until January 1st, 2027. That's been in place since 2023. If that comes off or is modified, that would certainly bring in a little bit more demand. I was just looking at some charts. One neat thing, I've learned getting into real estate about the statistics in the market. If you look at the listings from year to year, it is really steady. Like even, the hot markets, slow markets, those numbers remain very simple. What really affects the inventory going up or down, or how many sales is the buyer demand. Whereas like the listings really do stay quite steady. So if we start seeing inventory grow, it's not as many sales, not as many people buying. Inventory this year compared to last year is about on par. We're slightly down and sales are just slightly lower, I'd say, I think in the last month, but kind of steady Eddie since 2025 to here, and seeing what the government does with the home buyer or the foreign home buyer ban, and just being under that 10-year average. There's the longer we're under that, there's more pressure to come up. So let's anticipate 2027 to maybe start to see a little more upward pressure on prices. But in the North Okanagan here, yeah, we've really been kind of in a steady market for a few years now. So, and then speaking to that too, you see like one comment I've heard recently, oh, a lot of price decreases out there and homes sitting on the market. And yes, that's true. But you also see homes that come up and they sell right away. And so it's really, that's the importance of pricing your home appropriately and depending what your goals are, of course. And so from list price to sold price, we see around 97% on average. But some homes are listed and they take price decreases and never actually sell or get canceled, and that is true. And so like there is a bigger gap there from the original list price down to the actual sold price if you factor all that in. But I mean, I love talking about the market, and
Mhm.
so if yeah, on an individual basis, and there's different niches. We have seen, I guess, in the North Okanagan that the higher priced homes maybe take a little bit of a correction over the last few years. But yeah, again, in kind of the 500 to $1 million price range where a lot of people are shopping, it's been pretty steady for a few years now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think the Okanagan is just a place where people will always gravitate to. It is a pretty safe market, and just the lifestyle and like living in the Okanagan, it's just, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of people are, love to just come here, come there and stay. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think BC, we're about the highest price where we are. I've heard surpassed Hawaii in terms of
Wow.
average home price. I mean, thank you, Vancouver, for that. But
Yeah,
I mean, the reason for that, what is because it's one of the greatest places in the world to live, right? So
it
people want to
is.
live here, and so homes are priced appropriately. And I think, yeah, we get when the Vancouver markets, if people have to sell off there, we get a little bit of that trickle effect up here and into the North Okanagan. Although. Yeah, apparently population has actually decreased in BC, which is surprising, but I mean that won't last forever. So
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's a temporary thing for sure. It's just, yeah, it's a great place to be. And I guess I'm curious kind of what the journey is when, your first meeting with new potential buyers. What does that look like kind of from start to like, getting up to that point of writing an offer and yeah, how does that look like for you?
yeah, well, lots of questions, of course, first, and getting to know buyers what they're looking for. So we want to dial that in, what their goals are, and then getting to understand their personality types and how I can serve them. But of course, one of the questions that comes up first is, have you talked to a mortgage broker or lender, and have you gotten that pre-approval? Because yeah, before we go shopping and searching for houses, it's really helpful to know what price range we're looking in because we can, I mean, spend a lot of time wasting our time if we're,
Yeah.
looking at $1 million homes when we can only realistically afford $600,000 homes. So, and of course, I know anyone I've referred over to you or that's talked to you and got back to me, I get great feedback. Oh, thanks. It was so helpful talking to Kelly. And it's like you can provide a lot more information on certain things that I cannot. And the real estate market, that's my area. But as far as what can you afford and what are my options in getting a mortgage? Yeah, and you've been extremely helpful, gotten great feedback. So yeah, that's always one of the first things is yeah, go talk to a mortgage broker. Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
And then do you set up people like with like searches and that's part of your process too?
Yeah, like once we get dialed in, of course, there's lots of homes on the market, and so use the criteria to dial in on what you're looking for, and then from there, got a bit of a process so we can try to get to the top three. And I think one thing for my clients that it's a big decision, it can be a lot of money, right? So you want to be sure you're not overpaying for a home. I mean, you want to make sure you're not missing out on a home, so that we're looking for all the properties that are appropriate. And then when you get to that point where, okay, this could be the one, let's make an offer. That's where I make sure I do a deep dive and do the market evaluation so that and there's all sorts of homes out there, and people might not look at them because, well, it's too high of a price. Well, that's where hey, we can. If that's really the home for you, let's go take a look and maybe we can make an offer and we show them the market information and maybe they'll make a move and maybe not. But there's options out there for buyers, and that's where, of course, talking, I guess, a realtor, I can help walk through the process. And again, there are homes that sell very quickly, so I think it is a good idea to, you're a buyer to keep that eye on the market, and because when that one pops up that is priced appropriately, it can go within a few days and have an accepted offer on it. So keeping a close eye on the market. And if you're early in the process, maybe it's a year away, hey, I can set up just a general search on certain neighborhoods on something that somebody's an idea of what type of property you're looking for, and start to dial it in over that year to say, okay, these are really, or this is the neighborhood, or and go through that process to help gain clarity until the time comes to make that purchase. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is like, and it's such an amazing part to be involved in this like monumental aspect of people's lives of like
Mm,
purchasing their home or like, investment property. It's just, yeah, it's really rewarding to kind of see people achieve their goals in that sense. And I'm sure the same, like just love to be a part of that. And yeah, sometimes like a house can just kind of pop up, right? So by being ready, that means like having that pre-approval or like having spoken to a broker or a lender. It just helps that scenario be so much more calm, and you can make a decision at like a coming from a more calm place when you kind of have your ducks in a row first for what if that like house that is really sought
mm,
after does pop up, maybe other buyers want it too, but they
yeah.
haven't done the work in advance and like got themselves pre-approved. So, you have I think there's a better opportunity
Yeah.
to be successful in those scenarios by
Mhm.
kind of being ready, I guess. It's the
Absolutely. And we are seeing multiple offer situations. Actually, I was just through one myself here on my listing, and yeah, in that situation, you got to be prepared, and you got to know what you can spend and be
yeah,
prepared to offer. So,
yeah.
yeah, actually, an interesting one could be looking at a place here and even seeing some DROPOs or DRPOs, discretion regarding presentation of offers. So, what realtors will use that to say, okay, we're not going to look at offers for a few days or a week or whatever time the seller determined, and maybe price a little bit lower or right on market to try to incent multiple offers.
Okay.
So that's another tool that's used, not used often in the current market, but if the market gets hot, you'd start to see that used more often to try to incent multiple offers.
Interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know if I no, I knew of that strategy, but I've definitely been in on the mortgage broker side where, people are maybe second position, like they're in a backup offer because there was an offer already and like hoping that, the other offer doesn't go through so that, it's yeah, it can be there's definitely so many nuances and so much details that is definitely important to have a good team surrounding you. It's
Mhm.
in that situation for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I guess it's been great talking to you,
Yeah,
Kelly. We wrap it up there, and
sounds good.
yeah, be awesome and help people. That's the
Yeah,
that's the slogan I like to live by.
that's a good one. I'm already living it, so we'll just
Yeah,
steal the slogan though.
absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll talk to you again soon. And thank you for the chat. This was a really great opportunity to just sit down and talk in the industry. And I appreciate the time. Yeah.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks,
Thanks.
Kelly. Yeah.
Bye-bye.